is quickly about the WIS Academy, how, why, and what we do as WIS Academy for Nature. We are an organization that is headquartered in Switzerland, in Bunds. We have 4 hubs spread across the globe, and we are guided by the vision that is on social and environmental justice. And as you will appreciate, we are in that era of serious environmental degradation. We are losing a lot of biodiversity, and thousands of species get lost every year. So what we're asking ourselves is, how can we turn that around from losing biodiversity to improving biodiversity? We are also living in an era of climate change with the increase in temperature, and that has profound effects. And we're asking ourselves, how can we also contribute to cooling the earth? And we are also living in an environment that is full of inequalities when it comes to economic inequalities, where the rich are becoming richer, the poor are becoming poorer, and when you do that, then there is that push for those who are getting poorer and poorer to put more stress to the environment so that they can at least gain something from there. So how do we, again, address those inequalities? We believe in this vision where we want to a just and sustainable world where nature, conservation, and human well-being mutually reinforce each other. This is the kind of life we want to see. In the background there, you have the elephants. In the foreground, you have people and their livestock. And that is the kind of thing we want to see in our country and all over where we have these very precious creatures. And as I said, our strategy is one which is also backed with a lot of science and knowledge. And knowledge here is just beyond science, but also traditional knowledge, which we believe in so strongly. We turn knowledge into action. We are not just talking, but there's a lot of knowledge out there, which then we say, okay, how do we make this knowledge to be able to produce certain outputs that then can turn into some outcomes? And then as you do that, then the action that we take, we again generate more knowledge and more understanding. We try to respond to global issues from a local context. And we are structured in a way that we can synthesize, we can engage, we can also apply transformational research. As I said earlier, we have 4 hubs. South America, in Peru. We also have East Africa hub, which is based in Nanyuki with a satellite office in Nairobi. We have a hub in Southeast Asia, which is Laos. And we also have a hub in Bunds. Now, how do we do this? Now, what we believe in is that we can catalyze solutions that transform interactions between people and nature. We use the power of knowledge to empower agents of change. And agents of change here, you included. That's what I was saying. We are trying to break these silos by integrating these silos. Yeah, so then you become the powers, the agents of change. And how do we do this? This might not be very sharp, but maybe I'll read it from here. On the left-hand side, what we have are what we call levers of change: good governance, economic and financial muscles. We can also do collective and individual action, and there's the science and technology. And then on the right-hand side, up there on top, we are talking of human well-being. If we can be able to leverage on those levers of change that I've mentioned, governance, economy, individual and collective action, and technology, then we can be able to improve the well-being of people. We can be able to improve sustainable and just economies. We can be able to improve energy and decarbonization and access. We can be able to ensure that the food systems and nutrition patterns are sustained. And that is one of the main agenda for today, food systems. Yeah? And then we can also be able to do urban and peri-urban development. Last year, we spoke about this particular pillar so extensively. And there are also other elements of nature which we call the global environmental commons. You know, good air, the seas, things which are commonly shared and require that collectively we should be able to preserve them for posterity and for humanity. So that's how we do it. So we catalyze, and we believe in collaboration, partnership for things to happen. And if you look at that column of urban and peri-urban, and based on the meeting that we had last year, we moved another step, and I want to thank the president of KIP, I want to thank Okita, and I want to thank the Konza Metropolis. We moved to the next stage where we said, okay, we had very great presentations by the Konza Metropolis last year. But then we ask ourselves, when we work in Isiolo County, where we're trying to plan for wildlife movement and corridors, which is part of our Vision 2030, to be able to ensure that all corridors and connectivity are preserved, we ask ourselves, some of these corridors pass through towns. There's a town called Oldonyiro. And what we said was, based on this very great presentation that was done by the Technopolis, can we bring the county government of Isiolo planners to interact with the planners of the Technopolis? Can we bring the communities right in Isiolo County? There's a town we are trying to plan for wildlife movement and elephant movement, but is choked by human settlements. Can we bring the communities that are living in that area so they can come and see how a town can be planned with wildlife in mind? So we came. And when we came in two groups, the communities, the elders, the county planners of Isiolo, it has turned around everything. So I just want to report that our meeting last year didn't go in vain. And that has been now taken over by the Isiolo County government, and there is a process of planning for a town called Oldonyiro, so that it is something that mimics the Konza Technopolis. So thank you again so much. We really appreciate. So from that, I want now to move to where we work, which is our aim is to get people wealthier and to ensure that we have also healthy landscapes. And that is what our representative of the cabinet, Prime Cabinet Secretary talked about. You heard about FAO. We want people healthy. That means food. Wealthy, that means money in the pocket, but also not compromising the environment. So how do we harness these semicircular bands to ensure that that happens? Where we work in and what we believe in is you can try different ways, but in an area that we call a living laboratory, which out there we call the solutionscape. And this solutionscape, at the moment, the main area is up north there, the bluish area is part of Isiolo. Is an area called Oldonyiro. We have 4 community conservancies there. And then lower there, we have, is in Laikipia County, and there we have another 3. In Naibunga, we have 3 community conservancies. So 7 of them, with an entire area of about 1,900 square kilometers. So we are trying all these solutions to turn around nature-people coexistence. So that's where basically we're trying most of this stuff that we're doing. But our theory of change is that if we empower people, for example, in Naibunga and in Oldonyiro, to restore and sustainably manage grasslands through integrating codependent nature-based enterprises, and if we enable the conservation at the landscape level by implementing integrated local, regional, and national planning, you get that? You have to plan it well. So if you integrate this planning into all this and promoting policy transitions, and if we address critical knowledge gaps and foster collaboration among key stakeholders, that's why you see our team here spreading out, private sector, NGOs, government, county government, the planners, yourselves, then we will be able to enhance the value of the grasslands and maintain the functional ecological integrity of the landscape. That is what we believe in. And how do we empower people? Through local youths, communities, and through also capacity building. Yeah. So very quickly on what is this band about? How important are these bands? I know this slide is not that sharp, but I'll just quickly highlight its origin. Yeah, mainly originated somewhere in West Africa. They were called sai. They are shallow pits, yeah, that were traditionally dug to concentrate scarce rainfall and into roots of crops. So somewhere in West Africa, that's where they originated. So you dig the holes and then water percolates. Yeah, and once you do that, if you look at what we have, that diagram here, it shows on the left-hand side, which is brownish, is unless you dig and let the water to percolate, then any rainfall that comes just goes away. So you have a lot of rain, but give it like an hour, it's all gone. The water is gone. But when you dig, then there is the water retention kind of retention time is increased. There's more percolation, water into the improved soil fertility, and then water table, of course. Yeah, and eventually, for a local environment, there is then the local rainfall or evapotranspiration you can gain from that. So there are those kind of benefits. The bits that you see down here is science behind it. We are monitoring. Like I think, the representative talk about, we have to include a monitoring system where we look at what is the impact of what that we are doing. Yeah, so there is a lot of science that we do that. We do to be able to understand how is the soil temperature, how is the soil fertility, what is the moisture level based on this compared to if we did not do it. And then at the same time, also we ask ourselves, then how does this also, what does that mean to the local environment and temperature? But then for planning side of things, if we are to revive the rangelands, we also do a bit of planning and a bit of also looking at which areas are these that require this kind of restoration. And this kind of maps that I'm showing out here, if you look at those reddish area, this is a map of Oldonyiro, what I showed you earlier, up north in Isiolo, and also down into Laikipia, the Naibunga. They are covering about 2,000 square kilometers. And what we have here is a collaborative effort of different stakeholders who are doing rehabilitation. Again, what was said earlier, can we collaborate? Can we partner? Can we bring people together and then be able to make a common front to tackle this big challenge of degradation? So the red areas are the degraded lands, bare ground, that then with a communal effort, we can be able to restore. So what I wanted to highlight on this particularly is, for the planners, even as you plan, there is also a lot of map on land degradation, land improvement that you might want to borrow from us even as you plan and think through the planning process. Now the Bunds, very quickly, we have dug. The last year we dug 5,300, which covered about 102 acres. We added another 32,000 of those Bunds, which covered about 615 acres. And at the moment, there's additional 95,000 Bunds that are ongoing that will cover about 1,800 acres. And again, you can see nicely decorated, semi-half moon. Community is very enthusiastic to do that. As I mentioned earlier, the issue of water infiltration, if you didn't do that, you'll not get that water percolate over a period of time. It will be washed away. Yeah. So again, very important, fast rain. And then the germination. You can see one of our scientists there from the community looking at this grass. Is really, really precious, very precious commodity in that environment. If you see around, it's all brown. If you didn't do that, if you didn't dig it and plant it, then you will not get that. And there's so much that comes associated with that. There are benefits that come with that. For example, from a biodiversity point of view, what you have here, the map up there, the semicircular bands, you can see them, small little spots, but then after the rainfall, it gets greener, and there's evidence. What I've circled there in red are elephants visiting some of those areas. But then what I also want to emphasize here is that this contributes to the SDGs. For instance, life on land. Where here life on land, we are talking of like SDG 15, if you protect, you restore, you promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainably manage forest, combat desertification, and halt the reverse of land degradation, and then halt biodiversity loss. A lot comes with that as benefits, the ecological benefits, which again, as I said, we partner. Based on those semicircular bands, the last 1 year, we have partnered with the National Museums of Kenya, who are experts in biodiversity monitoring. And based on that, we have seen 2 monitoring work that has been done in collaboration with National Museums of Kenya, showing us that there's a lot of improvement when it comes to reptiles, it comes to insects, it comes to mammals, it comes to birds, the mycology. There's a lot of improvement just within 1 year. And if you click at that report, you'll be able to appreciate that, yes, if you did it, if you just dug it and did it, then there's quite a bit of a significant difference. This also shows you some of the benefits. Up there on the left is before we dug. This is a satellite image that shows the greenness as an example. It's just a small section that we've cut to show you. That was in 2023, satellite image just before the rains when we dug them. And then after the rains, you can see all these green patches. So what this indicates to you is, if we did not dig it and planted it, that area would still be bare, brown, because you can see around it, it's all brown, right? So that is the kind of impact that we are measuring. Over there also you can see the greenness is improving, and that is 1 year down the line. We are still monitoring as we move on. Now beyond that, there is also more benefits. So we say to the community, that's great, you've dug it, you've planted, so what? Because the communities at the end of the day, everybody here, at the end of the day, when you go back home, you want to take food to your children, you want to take your children to school, so it means money. So this grass, how can we turn it into an economic venture? So we are harvesting seeds, and communities are selling those seeds, and with those seeds you keep on, and then it becomes a way of life. We have harvested tons and tons of seeds since that time, for the cattle, the grass cakes, hay, etc. So basically, from that, I think you can get a feel of the opportunities around restoration of land. And if you do a restoration of land, everything comes from there. There's a saying in my mother tongue, where I come from. It says in Luo that Mwandu aelo, which means wealth comes from land. And if you take good care of your land, then you can see all these benefits. So business opportunities, value chain development, water conservation, underground water recharge, good governance. You must govern it well. If you don't govern it well, then it's gone. And we have a lot of support from the chiefs and the local elders, making sure that this is really well taken care of. Biodiversity conservation, birds, reptiles, insects, mammals, name them. Soil conservation, the technological innovation that we use to monitor, all that in there. Cooling the earth and greening the earth, and answering to these SDGs. So again, just for emphasis there, and that, I'll let that go. And for this one is to give you a feel of where we want to go with all that. On the left-hand side, we have, if you're to improve the well-being of people, make them rich, develop cities, do everything. And what do you mean in terms of that development when it comes to the environmental conservation on the x-axis? Yeah? If you just concentrate on development, yeah, and make it high at the expense of the environment, that's not where we want to go. And if you also just concentrate on environmental conservation at the expense of people's development, that's not where we want to go, down here. What we want to do is to ensure that we have well-being up there, that top right corner, and also making sure that the environmental conservation is well preserved. That's where we want to move. And we are seeing ourselves going there. So I want to leave you with those, but just to reflect on how nature is important and how possible it is to turn it around and make it useful for both people and nature. This was in 2022. Where is that? Yeah. So this was in 2022. And in that area, that small little thing you see at the middle is the kind of grass that you could see around. There's a lot of suffering that time during the dry season. And then we came in March, just before the rains, mobilized communities, started the digging, partnered with people also who understand the science around the digging, which is called the Just Dig It. And we started with about 5,000. You can see the area is still brown, but then the digging started, right? And then come November of that year, after some rains, we started seeing some change. You can see the areas that are not dug, there's nothing. But the areas that are dug, there's definitely grass. Yeah? And then come May this year, this is what we are seeing. Yeah, you can see the patches. This is all seeds and grass, and you can harvest it, and you can make money, and biodiversity is happy, and everybody's happy. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that this is very important. I know there'll be another presentation which will also now link to how do you now turn this into food, yeah, which will be on Thursday, yeah, and how do you turn this into ensure that planning is incorporated, because one of the main challenges that we have is conservation, wildlife conservation. Apart from those which are in maybe national parks, it's not considered as a land use. So when you planners plan on community lands have wildlife. Do you plan for them as a land use? So that's the main challenge. And when you see this, all this is happening in the community land. It's not like in a national park somewhere. So when it comes to planning for those areas, can we also plan for conservation as a land use? I want to stop there and to thank you all very much for listening.